Thanks everyone for joining this very special episode of the virtual Reboarding Roadshow, which is something that we as Apical are organizing throughout this month and probably a little bit into July. And in this session, we'll be talking to Jason Brown and Kayla Tarr, who will be introducing themselves shortly. Myself, I'm Zwede de Bruin, based out of Amsterdam, which is where our HQ of Apical is. I'll tell a bit more about Apical after the introduction. With me is my colleague Peter, also based out of the Netherlands. I'll be asking Kayla and Jason some questions later on regarding the topic of today, which is how to let your staff return safely and informed to work after COVID-19. And Peter will be taking a look at the questions that might come up either in the chat, or you can use the Q&A button in the bar on the bottom. The session will be recorded and will be shared afterwards, as will the slides. And then now I'll hand it over to you, Jason, to properly introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Sweeter. Excited to be here today. My name is Jason Brown. I'm the Area Director of People Operations at One Hotel Brooklyn Bridge and One Hotel Central Park in New York City. Great to see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list. I'm a little upset I can't see some of these faces because some I haven't seen in a long time, but it does prove the power of LinkedIn works because the message got out. I've been with SH Hotels and Resorts for almost 5 years now. Prior, I worked in human resources and hospitality for Dorchester Collection, Four Seasons, and Hilton Hotels. Really excited to be a part of SH Hotels and Resorts, and particularly the One Hotels brand, because of our really relatable core values, which we'll talk a little bit about, and also being part of a sustainable hotel brand, which means a lot to me. That's really striving to be a platform for change in the world. And also glad to be part of such an innovative company like SH Hotels and Resorts, that we really push the button, aren't afraid of technology, and that comes in handy with things like Apical and the situation we're in and how it's helping us with reopening our hotels.
Great.
Thanks. Jason, now Kayla.
Hi, my name is, thank you. My name is Kayla Tarr. I'm the Assistant Director of People Operations at the One Hotel West Hollywood. I've been with SH Hotels and Resorts for 3.5 years, opening our West Hollywood property, as well as helping with several other openings company-wide. I've worked in human resources in the hospitality industry for 9 years, also with companies such as Valor Hospitality Europe and Denahan Hospitality. I love Apical. I love what Apical has done to allow us to really make our reboarding something on brand for us. And I'm proud to be here today to share with you a little bit about SH Hotels and Resorts. We are, for those of you who don't know, we are a hotel brand management company founded in 2009 by Barry Sternlick, who is the creator of W Hotels and Starwood Hotels and Resorts. We operate several brands. Jason and I both mentioned that we are at One Hotels. Our One Hotels brand is a mission-driven hotel brand inspired by nature, with properties in South Beach, Manhattan, Brooklyn, West Hollywood, and most recently, Sanya, China. We also operate Baccarat Hotels and Resorts, which is a luxury hotel brand honoring Baccarat Crystal's 250-year heritage and perfection of craft, creating Baccarat crystals. And our flagship hotel for Baccarats is in Manhattan as well. Recently, we launched a new brand called Treehouse Hotels. It launched in the end of 2019 in London, and it was founded on the whimsical ideas that inspire a child to build a treehouse. Nostalgia, lots of cozy spaces, gives you a sense of adventure when you go, a more approachable version of the One Hotels brand, if you will. And last but not least, we have the SH Collection, our unique luxury and lifestyle hotel brands. As Jason mentioned, we're a company built strongly on our core values, which are love, honor, respect, delight, and trust. So we'll be talking a lot about those today, I'm sure. And both Jason and I are so excited to be here today to not only represent SH Hotels and Resorts, but to share with all of you how we have honored our values and our culture while trying to reopen our hotels post-COVID. So thank you everyone for being here. Hopefully we have some exciting things to talk about and we get some good questions from the group as well. Thank you.
Thank you both, and great that that you have introduced yourselves and of course SH Hotels. And you know, after giving that occasion to our guests, let me also briefly introduce Apical as the hosts of this event. We're a scale-up based out of Amsterdam, and we have around 50 people on board, and have 3 offices in Amsterdam, London, and Tel Aviv, and work with local partners in multiple countries. And our main focus usually is on onboarding. So we onboard around 250,000 people on a yearly basis. But during this whole COVID-19 situation, we thought, well, we can also venture into something else which is related to onboarding, because when you onboard something, you introduce someone from an old context into a new context. And as we have so much experience in making this engaging, simple, and a bit of fun, we thought we could also use this for another purpose, namely how to make sure that people can safely return to their workplace, taking into account all the necessary physical distancing protocols, you know, making sure that people feel confident, taking away some uncertainty in that regard. Because what you will see with this whole reboarding process is that there's a great level of uncertainty around it. So at the start of the lockdown, the uncertainty was high, then it gradually became less because people got used to the situation. But then when states are opening up again, you feel that level of uncertainty increasing again. And how can you mitigate that? And that is something that we will be discussing with Kayla and Jason later on. And you know, there's a lot of emotions going on. It can be positive emotions, like people take pride in how their company has coped with this whole lockdown. People are excited to see their colleagues again. They might be full of ideas on how they can cope with this situation or contribute. But there can also be some negative emotions, like the confusion about the rules. How do I treat my customers, or in your case, guys, your guests? And we'll be talking about that as well. Obviously, people are insecure about their job. Will that job still be around 2 months from now? And people could also have a feeling of detachment because they have not been around the hotel for such a long time. So how can you use all these emotions to create something that deals with and the positive and the negative effects of this returning to your workplace? And as I mentioned, in essence, it's not that different from onboarding, because in onboarding, you go from an old situation, an old context, to a new situation, and it also brings with it a lot of uncertainties. Though in this example, you're bringing not just one new hire in, but you're bringing your entire workforce in. And you know, it's great to have then a piece of technology that can support that, and that is what we at Apical are trying to do. In onboarding, we tend to speak about the 5 C's of onboarding, and those are compliance, about the basic legal framework, clarification, which is about your job role and your skills that you need to master, connection, the network that you need to create when you start a new job, culture, what is the written and unwritten rules within the organization. And at Epical, because of course we are a cool startup from Europe, we added cool as a 5th one. Now, the last one didn't really seem that appropriate for this situation. So we changed the last one from cool into care, because that is what you want to do as an organization. So the 5 C's of reboarding are pretty much the same, but with a different angle. And we've added the 5th one, which is about care. Now, in the coming period, me, Jason, and Kayla, and sometimes Peter, if he has something to contribute, which I doubt he will, are going to talk about a few of the elements around these 5 C's of reboarding, and how they have dealt with certain issues. And for that, we have a few questions prepared, and just kicking it off at this moment. The first question is related to your culture. Culture is, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of an organization. It can make or break a new hire, but it can also be a guidance in difficult situations. And I know that your values play a very important role in everything you do at SH Hotels and Resorts. So I was wondering, Jason, could you tell me how you have used your values to deal with the lockdown and in the preparation to reopen?
Yeah, absolutely. Kayla before mentioned our values being love, honor, respect, delight, and trust. And when I talked about our values, I said that they're really kind of human values at the end of the day, and really things that we look for and people that join our organization that shine out, and we look to enliven them every day. And as COVID happened, this was something we kind of saw coming around the world, and then it arrived here to us in the U.S. And at first I think I was very optimistic, as maybe many people were. Maybe this would last a few weeks, a month. What could we get done in that month? It came fast and furious in a way. Being here in New York, it's kind of one of the epicenters of where a lot happened very quickly. And we got to the decision where we had to close our hotels, and for a while all of our hotels were closed throughout the world. And so that brings the question, we really strive every day to be a really great employer, but how are you a great unemployer at the same time? Because we wanted to reopen our hotels, we wanted to welcome everyone back with open arms when this was all over with. So it's not just about shutting our doors, saying goodbye to everyone, we'll call you when we're ready. It's how do you keep everyone engaged? So there were some things that we did. Right off the bat, each hotel created a resource center for furloughed team members, just as a point of contact to make it easy to reach out to someone and to say, hey, we're here. If you need us, call us for an employment benefit, questions, benefits questions, really anything, along the way, we're here to help. And that really was our tagline. We also, as a company, created a fund, an employee assistance fund, that team members could reach out and apply for financial assistance. And that, was a resounding, thank you from all of our team members, which was great. Looking at benefits, and particularly this crisis being a health crisis and a pandemic, we've been able to maintain benefits for our team members and pay both the team member and employer contribution throughout. But then it's also about, staying in touch. And you talk about culture. I've always been a huge believer that communication, it's the foundation of trust, and trust is kind of your starting point with any culture. So, how do we continue to stay in touch with our team members? So like many, organizations out there, we did virtual meetups with our teams really at all levels of the organization. And if you know anything about a hotel is like a lot of different businesses or organizations in one organization with all the departments and all the facets, and they run 24/7. So it was important that, we kept that communication with every team member, small group meetings, large group meetings, with different groups of people. And there was a lot of communication, every week. And I think Zoom, some of these other platforms have become our best friend and many others out there. And one other thing we did that really has always been a great supporter of our core values, we use a tool called Pro Habits that sends out micro actions to those that are enlisted. And it's kind of a micro action each day to do something or commit to doing something at the beginning of the day, and then state whether you completed that or not at the end of the day. And they're all really based around our core values. And we were able to work with Pro Habits to shift those to, people working remotely and what it's like working remotely and some of the challenges you face, and tying those back to our values as well. And for those team members or leaders that were on furlough that participated, getting them to be able to enroll in that with their personal email if they weren't working. And then another thing, one of my favorites, we have a communication platform internally that's very social that we call Share. And we launched what we called a Share the Love campaign. And it really was, again, something going back to our core values tied to each of them, where we launched a campaign each week with something centered around our core values. And it really was to draw out some of those positive stories and get people to focus on, what are they doing with this time and what is their positive in the world, connected back to, SH Hotels and Resorts and our values. So that's a little bit of, what we did during this time.
How was that perceived? Was there a lot of engagement around that share?
Absolutely. It helped that we kicked it off with a very popular topic, which was kind of a throwback, and getting people to, post photos of themselves when they were either kids or younger. And so Share, that platform just blew up, and it was a great way to launch it. And so there's been a lot of engagement throughout as we've had, different campaigns each week. Nice.
Now, Kayla, I know you have been busy on the post lockdown elements of this whole COVID situation. How were you able to use some of your core values in that regard?
Yeah, I think as Jason proved, we definitely use our core values in everything that we do. I think it's important to note that for some, returning to work is almost just as frightening as lockdown has been. We're asking people to embark on the next phase of a very unknown journey. And there's a lot of fear around that and emotions, as you had mentioned earlier. So it's really important to note that everything Jason went through has allowed us to not only keep our values alive, but really establish a strong level of trust with our teams, which is really important as we're going into reboarding. Our teams trust that we've still reached out to them, that we still have compassion, that we still have care, that we're still the same company that we've always been. And that really allowed the reboarding process to be, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, but easier for our teams to trust that we're doing the right things to keep their health and safety at the forefront. We need our teams to trust that we've properly revamped all of our processes and procedures, putting their health and safety first. As Jason mentioned, we have many different roles. So some things are blanket across all of our roles, but other things are specific to your specific job or my specific job. We've needed our teams to trust that we've invested in technology and protective equipment to keep them safe. I saw in the chat someone mentioned our thermal temperature gauges in hotels, which Jason will talk about a little bit later. But things like that, our teams need to trust that we're going above and beyond. But it's not just the serious stuff while we're reopening. Love is one of our core values, compassion and care. So while this is a very serious time and health and safety is at the forefront, we also need to show our teams that we value that they're willing to take this jump with us and return to work in environments that they may feel uncomfortable with. So one of the really cool things we've done at each of the hotels is create welcome packages. So each employee, as they return, just like if we were opening our hotels for the first time, it's very big to give a gift. You're part of the reopening team, which can be really special. It's a very unique experience to be a part of something together. So we've curated little welcome packages that have things in them that are supposed to represent each of our core values. So each of our team members at every hotel will get that their first day back to work in our physical properties. And then I think, like I said earlier, I'm a huge fan of Apical, but Apical has played a huge. You're welcome. I'll be the plugs because I'm the Apical. It just has really allowed us to keep our values alive during reboarding. We've been able to customize what we're calling a returning to work after COVID training module within Apical. And a lot of times if you use health and safety trainings online, they're very just what they are. And Apical has allowed us to really keep our brand image and our culture and our values well visually represented and alive in that reboarding process. At the end of the day, whether we're opened or we're closed or we're reopening, our goal is the same, and we want to lean into our values to not only take care of our teams, but our communities and our guests as well. So values have been strong with us at every stage, to say the least.
And Kayla, there's a question in the chat from John asking if you can have give some examples what was in the welcome packages you guys provided.
I don't know. I have the cheat sheet here.
I was going to say, I actually don't know because I'm still at my home.
Okay.
I haven't made it back to the hotels yet, but Jason, I think, can tell what he's getting prepared there in New York.
Yeah, so luckily picked these up. They were shipped to our New York corporate office yesterday, so I have one on hand, and have to give a lot of thanks to our corporate office in LA and the team there, because they came up with this idea. Our VP of People Ops, Stan Wade, and the corporate team. And really, people are going to come back with all these new things being thrown at them and, this new way of working and a lot of change. And we as human beings don't like to change on a normal day, much less with what we've all been going through. But, this will be something that we want to give the team members right as they walk in the door or right as they get to their place of work in the building. So it's just kind of centering them and getting them, as Kayla said, to lean back into our core values. But, for each of our core values, there's an item. So for love, we have lip balm. For honor, eye mask and aromatherapy. For respect, a lavender scented candle. For delight, chocolate covered almonds. And for trust, hand sanitizers. And there's, a really great card inside describing why each of those kind of links back to each of these core values. And just, a little bit letter welcoming them back, from this time away.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is also a really nice bridge to the next topic that we would like to address, and that's around care. You've already given some really great examples of how you are caring for your staff. Through Share, Pro Habits, now using Apical for reopening, and this welcome package. I just wanted to go a bit deeper into how you have been able to engage on a day-to-day basis, maybe, and also assess their well-being during the lockdown. I mean, not just the around their health. Their physical health, but also about what it has done to some of your people in a mental aspect. Can you maybe share a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, going back to some of the things I mentioned in the first question, and communication being so important for culture and for trust, staying connected was vital during this time. I mentioned the resource centers. Each hotel set one up. Depending on how we were able to staff them, pretty much each hotel had a phone number that a team member could call, an email address. Some hotels even set up office times and a web link where you could sign up for a time to speak to someone one-on-one, especially at the very beginning when there was, so much communication needed and team members reaching out. And we helped with a variety of things, unemployment questions, benefit questions, like I said before, sometimes just being an ear to listen to people, because that's what a lot of our team just needed was, just someone to talk to and ask questions and need some reassurance. But it really, sent the message that just because our hotels are temporarily closed and you're on layoff, it doesn't mean that we don't care about you. We do. It continued to show that, that value of love and that we speak about things through care, concern, and passion for our people. The virtual meetups that we did with our team on a consistent basis provided that two-way communication, a really open forum for our various teams. We, use them to provide important updates, to answer questions. Again, that goes back to trust and tying that back to, one of our core values, being very transparent with our team in a forum like that and just sharing with them all the information we know and keeping them regularly updated. But we also use them, as much as we could for fun. I think I saw some really interesting ways. We started celebrating birthdays and anniversaries, which at one hotel we call tree rings. But, we may have started some new traditions over Zoom. One Hotel West Hollywood, which is Kayla's home hotel there, they did a virtual talent show, which I thought was amazing. Our Treehouse Hotel in London, they did pub trivia on a regular basis. And, when you think about our core value of delight, I mean, they were always to show delight and, a little bit of brightness in what could be a very dark time. And then Share that I mentioned before, our internal social media and communication platform, that Share the Love campaign that was really based around our core values. That made us really dig deep in a lot of ways and think of, okay, how can we continue to get our team members to engage while they're not here at work? And, engagement is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around, but I always think about it as, an emotional investment and connection into what you do. And that means the workplace and the work that you do. So, people aren't here, they're not at work. How do we keep them emotionally engaged? And so that Share the Love campaign, just doing something fun, allowing people to post pictures, videos, tag each other, like each other. I think we're really lucky to have a platform like that and a time like this where everyone was so disconnected, we were able to stay connected. And then, you mentioned mental and emotional well-being. I mean, just being there for our team members, being here to answer the phone or get back to them as quick as we could with any issue or question. We also have a really great team member assistance program, which if you work in the world of HR out there, it's usually called an EAP or Employee Assistance Program. But, it's a benefit that is often overlooked and people don't use it. But, we've really been pushing that because people's mental and emotional well-being throughout all of this is paramount. And I think, as human beings, we've all been tested through this COVID crisis. So, I'm certainly only equipped to go so far, as is Kayla or any of our other, people operations professionals. But to have a benefit like that, free counseling, free resources for a variety of things, and continue to really push that is really great. Another thing someone reminded me of here, wellness is huge with us too. So, we did some Wellness Wednesday things through,
Nice.
We have a partnership with Health Kick, which is a wellness program. So, a lot of great benefits for our team members through that. A lot of wellness things on Wednesdays and also being able to use Share to promote wellness throughout the week and to get people to, that might be locked up inside to do something for their own health or get out if they could and get out into the great outdoors, especially with One Hotels and being able to get out and connect with nature with this particular brand, really vital.
I've heard some really great examples and also the fact that it's not coming top down, but it's really, you know, on a peer level. I think that's really wonderful that you have been able to do that, and I believe in that way have been able to take away one of the stress factors that correlate to this situation. Now, moving from the mental well-being to the physical well-being, and then more in specific, you know, the how to keep your staff COVID-free after return, and not just your staff, but I presume also your guests. What measures have you taken to make sure that your teams follow all the state, government, and company guidelines regarding health and safety when your hotels reopen again? Kayla, maybe you can answer that.
This is a great question. At the end of the day, reopening our hotels or reopening any business, for those of you out there in different industries, health and safety requires a huge focus. There's a lot of information out there. Whether it was a part of your business model before, you know, us specifically, health and safety has always been in the forefront, but it requires a huge shift in focus right now. But not only do we need to measure what we're putting into place, but it really needs to be fully incorporated into how we do our business. You mentioned guests and team members, so how we take care of our team members, how they do their jobs, but also how we're servicing our guests. So first and foremost, while we're overjoyed to even have the opportunity to begin reopening our hotels right now, our main focus is to stress to our teams that with opening comes a lot of responsibility, not only for us as a company, but for them as individuals. We want our teams to share in the sense of responsibility with us, because it takes us all working together to really stop the spread of COVID. Our continued success post-COVID is going to be creating safe working environments for our teams and safe places to stay for our guests. But, you know, 3 months ago, it's crazy how much time flies, but 3 months ago, none of us knew what COVID was. So the first, to create any measures, we had to become well-informed and educated. So as a company, we've done extensive research into COVID, government guidelines, other best practices of companies that were affected before we were. And in order to develop measures, we need to ensure that we're not only following guidelines, but the things that we're incorporating into our business are enhancing our business. So we work to fully incorporate what we learned into our business practices, into our standard operating procedures, from everything from internal job descriptions and tasks, to, you know, how the guest experience needs to change because of these measures. And how we market ourselves. Travel obviously has been a huge part of lockdown. So how do we not only make our staff feel safe coming back into our buildings to service our guests, but how do we market ourselves so our guests know that we're a safe place to stay when there's a bit of fear around travel itself? So all of that required a lot of research and a lot of thought from all of our corporate leaders, from all the executive leaders at all of the hotels. It was very much a joint effort. Lots of research went into that. And then most importantly, we need our teams to learn all of this. Just with any guidelines, you don't just put them out there because the government says you have to. You want them to be followed. In order to be followed, you need to not only create these new policies and procedures, but you need to create educational tools so we can train our team members on not only that shared responsibility, but how to do their jobs in this new environment. How do we actually achieve all these things that we're trying to do? And again, this is where Apical really shines. We had been using Apical as an onboarding tool, as you mentioned, so the shift to using it for a reboarding platform was very easy for us. So we've now built in, like I mentioned before, the returning to work after COVID, and that's the foundation for all of our reboarding. And it also will remain a research. It's like I mentioned, it's a lot of information. Even as someone who has looked through the training multiple times, I still read something and I'm like, oh, I forgot that one. Or there's 12 recommended steps on how to wash your hands. How do you remember exactly how to properly wash your hands to really be safe? So not only is it a training that everyone will go through, but then it's in their phones. I love the mobile app. It's in their phones. You can refer back to it anytime. So it really becomes a resource. We've had team members, like Jason mentioned, who have been furloughed. They haven't been working. They haven't been a part of these conversations. So what information is important that they know? We want to make sure everyone knows what COVID is. It seems silly, but everyone should know what it is, but there's a lot of information out there. So Apical training has allowed us as a company to decide what we need our team members to know. It's allowed us to ensure that every team member is informed not only on COVID, but what our expectations as a company who's reopening are, and their specific job responsibilities before they even re-enter their workspace. So the idea is to give our team members confidence to come back, to be able to do their jobs and re-enter the workspace before they even have to physically do that, since those physical elements are such a huge part of this. Apical also allows us to monitor everyone's understanding. We've built in a lot of interactive elements. Engagement is super important to us, not only from the measuring that people understand the government guidelines, but that we're making it fun and approachable, because then our teams are more likely to grasp the training content. Health and safety can be a bit confusing to some if they're not used to doing it every day. So we've had some interactive elements, quizzes, videos, checks of understanding, and Apical allows us to monitor that as well, so that we know our employees not only have completed the training, but that there's a true level of understanding when they go back to their jobs. We've built in company-wide information as well as property-specific information. So Jason's onboarding for COVID for Apical in New York has some different parts than mine. There's different state regulations. So it's really allowed us to make it company-wide so everyone's getting all the right information, but also property-specific so that we can adjust it based on where our hotels are located. And then, there will be in-person trainings. Apical is a great foundation for our reboarding, but we're an in-person industry. There's a lot of in-person trainings. But I think the great thing is that that foundation of everyone's understanding, which would usually happen in a large classroom with 30 to 50 people with me standing up front saying it all, is now happening in a way that allows people to social distance. And then we can have smaller trainings when people are back on property to really take those foundations and make sure that that level of understanding is heightened, because that base level of information is already there. And then, confidence, I think I mentioned it, but the main thing is that our team members need to be confident in returning, confident that they are safe, and that's going to enable them to then service our guests and create a safe and healthy staying environment for our guests. So.
Yeah, so, the foundation is of course important, and that's regarding COVID, and how to make sure that you stay healthy and safe. Another thing that I feel is important, and especially for hospitality, I guess one of the industries that was highly affected, but also afterwards requires some changes in tasks and skills that your teams need to master in relation to physical distancing, for instance, and hygiene measures. Can you give some examples of new skills that your teams need to learn before you can reopen, and you know, how you have been able to bring that across?
Of course. Like I said, given that we're a service industry that thrives off of face-to-face interactions, it's obvious that we've had to adapt a little bit, not to mention that people eat, sleep, and socialize within our walls, which none of us have been doing for quite some time. So our teams not only have had to learn new skill sets, but I think there's been a lot of changes just in the mindset of how we approach things. It's important that our teams understand that returning to work doesn't mean things are going back to how they were before. We need to embrace that a change has happened and continue to learn and grow where needed in order to be successful post-COVID. There's so many elements of this education. Dan was one question ahead of me. I saw his comment there. But one of the big things that we've done that we're excited about is we've actually created a new position. So a director of health and safety, someone who is going to be a specific leader and ambassador on property. Typically, depending on what industry you are, that may have already fell to someone, but we're really making it a focus. That person has been very involved in our procedures and how we're developing them moving forward. Doesn't mean we're hiring someone new. We actually assign that position to our director of the front office here at my hotel in West Hollywood, but her job will be to really make sure that we keep health and safety alive, not only during the reopening process, but then ongoing from a day-to-day perspective. From a skill set as well, there's things that apply uniformly to everyone. For instance, prior to COVID, we said that every one of our team members had to be a brand ambassador. So no matter what your job is, no matter what you do every day, you need to know the brand and you need to know how to bring it to life in everything that you do. So post-COVID, we're looking for our team members to understand what it means to be not only a brand ambassador, but a safety ambassador. So there's certain things you need to know, whether you're a room attendant cleaning rooms or you're the general manager of the hotel, to put safety first. So a lot of in our training is what it means to be someone who is putting safety first, what it means to be a safety ambassador. A great example is the process for reporting suspected cases of illness. As a room attendant cleaning rooms, you might not have known what to do if someone was sick before, where with COVID, it's very important that our teams not only know the signs for someone who might have it, but know exactly who to tell, exactly how to report it. And then we have a team in place that knows exactly how to respond to that. But everyone needs to know that. That person might not have shown those symptoms when they checked into the front desk. So the front desk knows how to do it, but then the room attendant didn't know how to do it. So that's an example of something that kind of encompasses every position. And then there are, of course, things that apply specifically to your position. Our housekeeping team, for instance, Jason's going to go over a little bit later of some of the ways that we've actually changed the guest experience, but our guest experience has changed. So room attendants or housekeepers who cleanliness was something they did before, they now need to learn even more stringent cleanliness procedures in order to meet government guidelines. They might need to learn how to use new technology and new equipment in order for us to reach those that we've had to purchase. And then, making different things of focuses that weren't before, public areas, high touch points. So it's not necessarily a new skill set, but really enhancing a skill set that was already there in order to meet these new guidelines. Other examples of service are of course, the front desk. Again, we're a person to person. We hand you a guest card. So we've had to adapt how we're doing that. There might be masks involved. Some of the front desks are getting plexiglass that'll be between you and the guest. So how do you still create that, guest experience with having a bit of a barrier because of health and safety. So again, not a new skill, but really an enhancement of a skill that was already there. And then maybe as a front desk agent, before you didn't have to clean your workspace. The night cleaning crew comes in and cleans it every night. You just show up and you check guests in. Where now cleaning is a part of your job as well. You need to clean your workspace every day. You need to follow checklists for cleanliness that maybe you didn't have to follow before. Our restaurant servers, right? People are eating in restaurants again, which is exciting. But we've have new processes for serving our guests. They might not be placing their order with you directly. We have a One Hotels app, which is really great. So maybe they're placing their order through the app instead of through you as a person. And then we're minimizing how much we're touching things. So, you know, a tray will be set next to a table versus us placing the food across to you on the table. So again, it doesn't change the basis of the service that we were providing, but team members will have to shift their skill set to focus on different things. And I think that mindset is really important then as well. Not only do we have to do these things, but we have to do them in a way where we're still keeping our values alive. We're still keeping our service culture alive. We call our service good-natured service. So how are you now giving good-natured service in our hotels, still being the brand that we have created, but you're doing it in a way that you're also following new skill sets and have that new mindset where health and safety is also in the forefront.
And Kayla and or Dan, Jason, I do have a question about, let's say, I wouldn't say the new rules or the new policies, but typically in my experience, when you change something in terms of the rules, the instant response is pushback, depending on the change, of course. Well, a lot of changes are happening currently. This is, of course, a very serious topic. What were the first feedback of the staff in terms of the additional tasks they need to do now? I can assume that they are being embraced, or do you still receive some pushback on stuff that is just important for the new normal? Do you hear some feedback over some?
Well, I think first and foremost, we're in a really unique position as companies that had closed and are reopening. So change isn't just coming. We have employees who are coming back excited because they get to come back to work. Sure. So someone who is excited to be there is more likely to be embracing of change because they're excited. And we're really focusing on building that mutual respect, mutual responsibility. So it becomes part of what you're proud of. You're proud to offer a safe and healthy environment for our guests, just like before you were proud to offer good, friendly service that made your guests want to come back. To my knowledge, we haven't had a whole lot of pushback. The general atmosphere has been very embracing so far. Yeah,
and we've reopened one of our hotels to date, which is in South Beach. I think this is week 2, if I'm right, of their being open. And you know, things in Florida are very different. You know, every state's just different, but things have quickly escalated as far as you know, business and volume levels down there. And you know, the feedback I've heard, you know, the team's been very adaptable. They're wearing their PPE. They're doing all the right things. You know, we have guests at that hotel that are coming from all over the country, potentially other parts of the world. And, you know, we all experienced COVID, you know, in a very different way, depending on where we were and how it impacted the place we live. So, you know, when we all come together and congregate, you know, at One Hotel South Beach, you know, we're going to keep to the normal that, you know, we experienced on a day-to-day where we were from. So if I'm coming from somewhere where I didn't wear a face mask, I'm kind of looking around thinking, why do I need to wear a face mask, right? So, you know, our team down there, I think from what I've heard, they've done a really great job setting the example for everyone, for the guests, for each other, because this really is a health and safety issue. You know, I know here in Brooklyn, as we've had calls with our teams, you know, they've had a lot of questions, and rightfully so. There's an immense amount of change, but you know, we've been there with an answer, and if we don't have one, you know, we're very transparent as to why and when we'll get one or if we'll get one. And we've we've tried to communicate that things are changing very, very quickly on a regular basis, and that's why there's so much communication. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, no doubt we're going to have some team members that, you know, just aren't comfortable or are going to question, potentially even you push back on some of the stuff. But, you know, that's where, you know, we've talked about opening Brooklyn and just being a much, much kinder hotel, kinder than we've ever been. And, you know, being empathetic and listening, and just, you know, that human side of things and, you know, the values we talk about, making sure that with our own team members that, you know, we're instilling those and trying to communicate the importance and the why behind everything that we're doing so they will get on board with it.
Yeah.
100%. I think our reboarding really has been focused on the why.
Yeah.
And when team members understand why they need to do something, they're more likely to embrace it.
Yeah. Agreed. Thanks.
So guys, apart from all the changes, of course, in you know, the behavior, the tasks, the physical measures, there's another big change that, you know, accounts for your whole industry, and that's a significant change in the relationship that you will have with your guests, because there's a big discrepancy there. You want to offer personal service, but your guests need to use an app to order their food. So how do you plan on providing the same level of personal service, or at least, you know, bring across that same feeling to your guests of before COVID? Have you done anything in that domain, Jason?
Yeah, you know, I think this is definitely going to be a new challenge for the hotel and hospitality industry in general. I mean, if you take the people out of a hotel, you take the service aspect out of a hotel, you essentially have Airbnb. And so people come to a hotel for a reason. They come for that service. But there's also kind of, I think, a new importance for guests, you know, health, safety, a clean environment. That is an amenity, just like, you know, a spa is an amenity or in-room dining, right? Now, this is something that is going to be important for guests. And, you know, it's not just an amenity, it's an expectation. And so we have to deliver that. You know, some of the things we're doing to deliver on that, you know, and Kayla mentioned, I talked about some of the things we're doing to kind of change our service. You know, we're putting a seal on our guest rooms so that when a guest checks in and they go to their guest room, it's there. And when they open the door, that seal breaks. And it's a seal just to seal the room and to certify that that room has been cleaned, you know, up to standard, and provide that peace of mind as they walk in the door. PPE packets, you know, personal protective equipment. I think we've thrown the PPE around if people don't know what that is. With things like face mask and a few other things for guests. We are putting in a 48-hour vacancy between guest stays, so no one enters that room, you know, after a guest checks out, and it's clean and it's there for 48 hours. Kayla mentioned the thermal scanning machines in our lobbies and public spaces, taking temperatures of guests as they come and go. And if someone has a temperature of above a certain amount, you know, addressing that in the right way. We have social distancing measures in public spaces and restaurants. You know, all this, you know, while it seems very different from service and the way that we've serviced in the past, it is, you know, something that our guests are going to be looking for in this COVID world. And, you know, we still have that personal interaction. There are still people there to go to. We're supplementing some of that with technology. You know, a lot of this is technology that we already had rolled out, or we've just enhanced or, you know, pushed forward given the need around COVID now. But Kayla mentioned the One Hotels app that we have. Instead of giving, you know, we have a famous key that's one of my favorite things in our hotel. It's about the size of a quarter and it's made out of wood. And it tells a guest, you know, that they're in a sustainable hotel from the minute they walk in. But to take it a step further, you know, doing what technology-wise, what some other hotel companies have done, you know, you can use your cell phone and that app as your guest room key. You know, having QR codes around the hotel, like in food and beverage, where you can pull up your own personal mobile device, see the menu, order items, pay for food and beverage, and kind of limit that exposure and that interaction with another human being. So it really is going to be a balancing act, because everything COVID is telling us with social distancing and limiting interactions and fewer people gathering, it really is kind of the antithesis to what we do in hospitality in a lot of ways. But, we're going to stress continuing to provide personalized service. It may look a little bit different. There may be some designer plexiglass at check-in. It may be from a 6-foot distance, but, we can still interact with people. There may be a mask, but I think if you've never heard it, I'm coining the word smizing, which is smiling with your eyes, because I can't see your face anymore. But, how do we show people that, we're there, we're delighted, we're happy that they're here. But at the end of the day, there's so much change going on. Our job, is to ensure that our team, that they're well prepared to meet all these new demands, make sure that they're confident, and at the end of the day, that they continue to live our values of love, honor, respect, delight, and trust. And I think as long as they're doing that, those things will shine through in every service interaction. And, we really look for people that love what they do and love hospitality. And our teams are very adaptable. So, we're here to help them and guide them. But they're the professionals. They're the ones on the front line that do it every day. So, I can show them, I can teach them, but a front desk guide that checks someone in at our hotels is going to know, is going to adapt, is going to do it better. And at the end of the day, it's quite frankly probably going to teach me a thing or two when it comes to service. We want to make sure that they know about this new normal and are confident and have all of that. And then we're going to trust in our team that they're still going to do what they do well and adapt and just do it in a new way.
Yeah, there's still a lot of uncertainty around this, but there's no lack of preparation on your side. And I think you've shared some beautiful examples of how you've coped with not just the lockdown, but also with preparing for reopening. And you've opened already in South Beach. Are there any initial feedback or experiences there on how you were able to bring across the level of service that you are used to in the new normal?
I've heard that things have really gone well there. I said, I think a lot of our feedback has been, guests have come. South Beach is a playground. One Hotel South Beach, I think, is a big, beautiful playground in South Beach. So they're happy to be there. They've been locked up. And, I find, all of our hotels have their own kind of special kind of service based on our location. And South Beach is one of those places that, you go to relax, you go to party a little bit. And so there is this natural, service style down there. And, we haven't really lost, any of that magic at the end of the day. And, we didn't put everybody through a bunch of service training when they came back. We do that pretty much on a regular basis just to remind people of service basics. But again, at the end of the day, they're the service professionals, and it's just figuring out how to do it with some new changes and some potential restrictions. So, the feedback's been great. Business has been picking up, and the sky's the limit in a way down there. And I hope things continue to go well. Potentially, we may hear about some news here in New York with one of our hotels opening. Fingers crossed. But we're aiming to hopefully be able to make an announcement soon, and hopefully hear some things about our other hotels.
Great, thanks for sharing this. I want to take the last, let's say, few minutes to address some questions from the audience. Peter, you've been.
Yeah, well, I see that Jason is multitasking very well, so he answered already a few of them. There's at least one unanswered. That's from John. Thanks for asking the question, John. I think Jason, you can also see the question, but the question is more around the topic of most of the employees were in layoff. Most of them are still. What and how did you communicate with them that are not coming back yet? Can you share a little bit about the message and the channel you use.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for anyone that, we know isn't coming back before the end of the year, and, I know in South Beach, as they reopened, they unfortunately had to communicate to some team members and leaders that, we didn't foresee them coming back just because there are certain parts of the business that aren't going to turn on right away, and given the restrictions may not turn on in 2020. So, I mean, our approach has always been to pick up the phone and have that conversation. If we could have done that in person and face-to-face, that would be number one. But right now in this world that we're living in, that's just not always possible. So, we've picked up the phone, we've talked with them. Most of our leaders, our team members, we've seen on a regular basis, on a lot of our virtual meetings. So we've had some face-to-face, but, we want to make sure that we do that personally. It's not a letter that we just send off or anything like that, but it really is a conversation. And again, looking at our core values and what we're all about, doing that with, love and respect and just explaining to them, why that decision is being made. My husband doesn't work for us, but he works at a hotel company. He's been on the receiving end of that as well. And, I've learned from what he went through of how we could even do that better. So, at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings here. And to me, it's just always taking that time again, a lot of empathy, a lot of respect goes into that messaging when it's an unfortunate message like that.
Yeah, and now, well, great. Thanks for sharing. And I see that Dan also using the word inspired. And I must say, I know you for some time now, and Kayla, we've been talking a little bit, but I think it's so impressive how SH Hotel and Resorts is using their values, to communicate, and especially in times like this, staying close to your values are super important. And I think you guys are doing a great job with that. So thanks for sharing also. Zweden, I'm not sure if you want to say some final words, but I will leave it.
Well, yeah, of course, I wanna thank all the attendees for showing up and listening in to this indeed inspiring and great example of how to deal with this extraordinary situation with all this uncertainty. I think you have done a great job, and I'm sure that your reopening will be a big success due to the preparation, the people focus that you have. So I really hope that I'm able to visit one of your branches anytime soon, maybe the Treehouse in London, which is a bit closer than across the pond. Yeah, thanks again for taking the time to share your story and your experiences, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you both.
Thank
you for everyone that participated.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, have a great start of the day and remainder of the day, Kayla and Jason, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.